is Church Online.
I'm Lola.
And I'm Jamie.
Today we're looking at Jonah Chapter 1.
But that will be after time of worship.
Jesus is the rock. Hey, hey, hey! Yeah, he's the rock. I said Jesus is the rock. Jesus is the rock. Come on! Jesus is the rock. Yeah, he's the rock. The Lord's our rock, in him we hide. A shelter in the time of storm. Secure in him we will abide. A shelter in the time of storm. Hey, yeah. Jesus is the rock in a weary land. Weary land, oh, weary land. Oh, Jesus is the rock in a weary land. A shelter in the time. He's my shelter in the storm. I said Jesus is the rock. Jesus is the rock. Jesus is the rock. Yeah, he is the rock. A shade by day, defense by night. A shelter in the time of storm. No fears alarm, no foes of fright. Shelter in the time of storm. There's nothing to fear, 'cause Jesus is the rock in a weary land. Weary land, oh, weary land. Oh, Jesus is the rock. He's my rock. Yes, sir. A shelter in the time of storm. You believe it, let me hear you say. Jesus is the rock. Jesus is the rock. He's my rock. Jesus is the rock. Yeah, he's the rock. I said Jesus is the rock. Jesus is the rock. Come on, Jesus is the rock. Yeah, he's the rock. I said Jesus is the rock. Jesus is the rock. Jesus is the rock. Yeah, he's the rock. Raging storms may round us beat. A shelter in the time of storm. We'll never leave our safe retreat. A shelter in the time of storm. All I need to know is Jesus is the rock in a weary land. Weary land, oh, weary land, oh, Jesus is the rock. He's my rock. On him I stand. Shelter in the time. If you feel me, clap your hands now. Jesus is the rock in a weary land. Weary land, oh, weary land, oh, Jesus is the rock in a weary land. A shelter in the time. Sing it with you now. I said Jesus is the rock. Jesus is the rock. Jesus is the rock. Yeah, he's the rock. I said Jesus is the rock. Jesus is the rock. Jesus is the rock. He's the rock.
For the next few weeks, we are going to be looking at the book of Jonah. Remember when we did the Bible overview, we had said that the book of Jonah was one of the minor prophetic books. Even though that's the case, it reads like a story, pretty much like the book of Esther or the book of Ruth. It is interesting and easy to understand. There are 4 chapters in this book, and I would like you to read 1 chapter every week. And if you're not able to read just yet, get someone to read a chapter a week for you. Let's start with chapter 1. So Jonah was told by God. Actually, it starts with, the Lord gave this word to Jonah, which means that God said to Jonah, get up and go to that great city, Nineveh, and tell them that he, God, was going to overthrow them because they were so wicked. But do you know what Jonah did? He went in the absolute opposite direction. He decided that he would run away from God. Can you imagine that? He decided to run away from God. So he went to a port named Joppa. He bought a ticket to get onto a boat so as to be able to go to a place called Tarshish. Now, Tarshish was the furthest place that he could think of that was in the then known world. It was certainly very far, really, really far from Nineveh. And in his mind, it was far from the Lord too. So he got on board and they set sail. And then the Lord sent a violent wind, causing a violent storm to take place. So much so that the sailors, who were experienced sailors, some people say that they were Phoenician sailors, and in those days the Phoenician sailors, they were the most experienced sailors you could come across. So these sailors were terrified because this violent storm was like going to break the ship apart. So what they did was to call on their various gods to help them. Of course, these were not gods, but in their minds, they were gods. They also threw cargo overboard so as to lighten the ship. But the storm raged on, it was getting worse, and indeed, the ship was looking as if it was going to break apart. Now, the captain of the ship went down and saw Jonah fast asleep in the hold of the ship where the sailors slept. And he woke him up and said to him, I believe he must have shouted at him, "What are you doing? Why are you sleeping with all this chaos that is going on and you are sleeping? Get up and pray to your God." Anyway, Jonah, of course, he came up on board and the sailors decided to draw lots to see which one of them was the cause of this storm. And as they drew those lots, the lot fell on Jonah. So they looked at him and said, "Who are you? Where are you from?" They wanted to know more about him. Jonah said, "I am a Hebrew and I worship the Lord God Almighty, the one who made the land and the sea." He also told them that he was running away from the Lord. On hearing this, they became even more terrified. How could Jonah think of running away from the Lord, much less actually doing so? And they groaned. Why did Jonah have to do this and come on their ship? And for them to be going through what they were going through because of what Jonah had done. So they asked Jonah, what should they do? And Jonah asked them to throw him overboard. But they didn't do that. Instead, they tried to row as hard and fast as they could to land. But the storm was getting worse and worse and worse. The stormy seas were just too violent for them to succeed in getting to land. They then cried out to the Lord, to Jonah's God, saying, "Oh Lord, please don't make us die for Jonah, for whatever it is that Jonah has done wrong. And please don't blame us or make us be responsible if Jonah isn't alive anymore." They said that part because they were going to toss Jonah overboard into a raging sea, a sea that they knew that would be very difficult for anybody to survive. So what they did was that they picked Jonah up and tossed him overboard. And guess what? The storm stopped at once, immediately. Oh my goodness. They were awestruck. They were dumbfounded. They were flabbergasted at God's awesome power. And there and then, they made a sacrifice unto the Lord, unto Jonah's God. And they, from that time, vowed, they promised that the Lord God, our God, Jonah's God, was the God that they were going to serve. What a story. Is there anything that jumps out at you on hearing this story? For me, there are a few things. Jonah could hear from God. Remember, we had said that the people in the days of the Old Testament who heard from God were priests, prophets, kings, and judges. So Jonah clearly heard from God and decided to run away from God. How could he even think that he would be able to succeed in running away from God? Even the sailors, on hearing Jonah's story, were shocked that Jonah could even think of and actually carry out the act of running away from God, the God who made the heavens and the earth, the land and the seas, you and me. The next thing that jumped out at me was that these sailors prayed to their gods. We know that they're not really gods, but in their minds and in their hearts, they felt that the gods that they were praying to were gods. But they didn't do anything, in the sense that their gods didn't stop the storm. The story also shows us that these sailors were kind-hearted, they were good, because they didn't want to throw Jonah overboard. But when they did, they saw that the storm stopped immediately, and they now turned to serve God, our God, the Lord God Almighty, Jonah's God. I wonder what happened to Jonah when he was in the sea. Well, that's a story for another day. But for today, that's the end of the story.
Hello everybody! Look, I've made a little paper boat to remind us of the storm that we see in Jonah chapter 1. In that storm, the sailors, they tried to row back to shore, didn't they? But they couldn't manage. They couldn't save themselves from the storm. Only God can save them. It's a good picture of our lives. Only God can save us. And sometimes in life, we might have storms, things that don't go well. In the New Testament, we see Jesus sometimes in a stormy situation in a boat, but each time he can save the disciples from the storm. Jesus is the one who can save us from storms. So let's make a little boat. So for this, first of all, for the hull, the main part, you need a rectangular piece. Usually we have to make a square, but this time we're going to have a rectangular, so a piece of A4 is fine, whatever colour you like. And start by folding it this way, okay, in half, crease that, and then unfold it, and then we'll fold it the other way. So you've just folded it in half in both directions. Now when you've folded it like this, make sure you've got the fold end to the top, so the open end is at the bottom. And we're going to take each corner, top corner, and we're going to fold it down so it lines up with that middle crease that we made. And it was always with origami, be as accurate as you can. So now we'll take the other corner and we'll fold it down to line up with that middle point. So now we've got a sort of like a house shape with these two folds and these flaps at the bottom. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take these flaps and fold them up. So fold the top flap up, then you can turn it over and we'll fold the other side up. Okay, so we've got a sort of hat shape. Now, if you go to the underneath and put your fingers in, and you can see you can open it up, and we're going to open it completely up and fold it over on itself like that. Yeah? And you've got these two flaps at the edge, so we're just going to fold one under each side. So fold that one under there, and this one under here. And then it will sit nice and flat. Now, once again, we're going to take the bottom and fold it up. So I'm going to take that corner there and fold it up to meet the top. Turn it over, and I'll take this corner, oops, and fold it up to make the top. So now you've just got a triangle. Again, we're going to open it up from underneath and pull it across like that. So we're taking it from there to here. Okay, so now you've got a square with a triangle on each side. Now, if you hold it one way up, you've got these two flaps. The other way up, you don't have the flaps, but you want to hold it so you've got these two flaps. And what we're going to do is we're just going to gently pull those out from each other like this. And there we have our boat. So we're pulling those out. So then what you need to do is flatten that down. And you will have this section in the middle, very handy for attaching a mast to. So here we have a basic paper boat, and because it can fold flat, very easy to decorate. You could draw portholes on with people looking out, you could write the name of your boat, you could draw on a little anchor, any decorations that you want. When you've decorated it how you want, then we're ready to make the mast and the sail. So you can choose another colour of paper or the same colour of paper to make the sail. And to get it the right size, if you just put your boat up against the paper, and then we're going to draw the sail on. Now, you get a lot of different shapes of sail. You get square sails and you get triangular sails. This one, I'm making it it is a triangle, but it's sort of a funny bent triangle, a bit like a pointy hat that's pointing backwards. Okay, so that shape, can you see that? So it's coming round like this and down like that. That's going to be the shape of my sail. So I'm going to cut that out. I don't know enough about sailing to understand very much about sails, but I know that this is a shape that you do find sails that look like that. Now, on your sail, you might want to write a message. You don't have to. You could just have it plain, but you could write a verse like, Jesus calms the storms, or, sorry, that's not a Bible verse, is it? You could write something like, even the winds and the waves obey him. That is a Bible verse. Or you could just write, Jesus calms the storm, or there's a song, isn't there? Through the storm, he is Lord of all. You could write that. Or you could write what I've written here, Jesus is Lord over the storm. I'm going to write, Jesus is with me in the storms. And I don't just mean bad weather. We've had a lot of rain lately. I mean when hard things happen. Now, you could just glue that onto that central section of the boat. That would be fine. Or you could make a mast. Now I've got these, they're wooden kebab sticks, and I've taken one and I've cut it in half, so half of it's on this boat and I've got the other half left here. Or you could use a pencil to make a mast, any kind of stick. So if you want to do that, what you want to do is place it onto your sail, probably on the other side from your writing, and make sure it's going vertically up and down your sail, and we'll just get a piece of tape and stick that on. There we go. And then the bottom of the mast, I'm going to stick on to this useful triangle that sticks up in the middle of our hull. Just put some tape on there, bend it round the back. And there we have it, another little boat. A group of boats, little sailing boats, is called a flotilla. You could make a whole flotilla of boats, and they could all sail along, and they can all tell you things that remind you that Jesus is with you in the storm. Well, I hope you enjoy making some boats. You can decorate them however you like. You could add a flag, you could add some little paper people inside. It's a really nice little toy. You could even see if you can make it float. Right, well, I will be back next week with another craft on the Book of Jonah. Bye for now.
I wonder what Jonah was thinking when he decided to run away from God. I just can't imagine it.
I know, right? God is the creator of the heavens and the earth, of me and you, of the land and the sea, and of Jonah. God has control over everything, yet Jonah is still trying to run away from him. How's that even possible?
I know. The sailors were kind-hearted though. They had kind hearts.
How so?
They really didn't want to throw Jonah overboard. They prayed to our God, the God of Jonah, saying that they shouldn't be held accountable if Jonah dies when they throw them overboard.
Oh yes, that's true. They really were kind-hearted. By the end of everything, they saw the awesomeness of our God. Because as soon as Jonah was thrown overboard, the storm stopped immediately.
Yes, and they changed their tune and vowed to serve our God.
What a story. That's it for this week.
Till next time, bye!